Hi everyone, welcome to Documentary of Crime. This is new shocking and horrible case. Welcome to another crime story video. Don't waste the time, let's go.
Hello everyone, my name is David. Today we are going to take a look at another real story with you. Many such cases have come forward where people believe ending their lives is easier than living through the struggles of this world. For some, suicide feels like a simpler option than facing their problems. And today's story is one of those tragic cases. In this story, a man ends his life, but what he leaves behind shocks everyone. In his suicide note, he clearly states his last wish. He writes that his final request must be fulfilled, a single line he wanted written on his coffin so the whole world would know the truth behind his death. He wanted people to understand that it wasn't just suicide. It was because someone pushed him to the edge, someone forced him into it. When people saw his final wish, they were stunned. The line on his coffin revealed the unbearable pain he carried and pointed to those who had driven him towards such a tragic end. It wasn't just a note, it was a cry for justice. This wasn't just another death. It was a case that opened people's eyes to the silent battles many fight and how cruelty, pressure, or betrayal can destroy a life. When people saw his last wish, his family said, "This is a man's final request. No matter what, it has to be fulfilled." So they honored it. When his words were written out and relatives gathered, neighbors also came to see. But as people looked at his body and read what he had written, everyone was shocked. The note carried so much pain and anguish that it left everyone wondering, what really happened to him? What could have pushed him so far that he felt suicide was his only choice, and what exactly was the final wish he revealed before dying? To know the full truth, you'll have to stay till the very end. This story comes from Karnataka. In Karnataka, there's a well-known place called Hubli, and that's where a man named Peter lived. Peter worked in a private company. At that time, he was about 35 to 38 years old. He was good at his job, went to the office regularly, and earned well enough to run his household comfortably. But despite everything going smoothly, there was one thing. Peter was getting older, and he was still unmarried. His family had started looking for a bride for him, insisting that he should get married soon. They would often pressure him, saying, "It's time you should settle down now." However, Peter always replied that he wanted to achieve something big in his life first. That's why he kept refusing, saying, "I'm not going to get married right now." As time went by, eventually in 2022, a girl from the same area named Pinky came into the picture. Peter's marriage was arranged with her. For Peter, it meant that someone had finally come into his life, to care for him, to be his companion, to be his life partner. This made Peter very happy. On the other side, Pinky too was overjoyed because Peter was a genuinely good man. She felt blessed that she had found such a wonderful life partner. In 2022, Peter and Pinky finally got married. After the wedding, both families were extremely happy because when the children are happy, the parents naturally share that joy. Peter was happy, Pinky was happy, and their married life seemed to be going very well. They cared for each other deeply, and for a while everything looked perfect. For the first month, they lived peacefully and lovingly together. Their relatives, neighbors, and friends would say the two looked like an ideal couple. But after 2 months, things started to change. Small disagreements began to turn into arguments. Slowly, every little issue became a reason for conflict. Pinky would sometimes argue with Peter, and other times Peter would raise his voice at Pinky. What had started as a happy marriage soon turned into constant fights. Family members later said they had noticed the tension, but assumed it was just the usual adjustment problems every new couple faces. No one imagined that these small quarrels could grow so serious. But in this case, the fights did not stop. They kept increasing day by day. This marked the beginning of a chain of events that no one in either family had ever expected. The fights between Peter and Pinky grew so intense that by the third month, one day, Pinky finally left. She walked out of Peter's house and went back to her parents' home. By then, both families had come to know that there were frequent quarrels between the two, and that was the reason Pinky had decided to leave her husband's house. On the other side, Peter began to realize his mistake. He thought to himself, Pinky has left me, but this shouldn't continue. If she's upset, I should try to make things right. He admitted that maybe he was wrong too, and even if Pinky argued sometimes, he should have handled it more calmly. Determined to fix his marriage, Peter went to Pinky's home to convince her. He said to her, "Please come back. Without you, I don't feel at peace. Whatever differences we have, whatever fights we had, let's sit down and resolve them. Let's not fight anymore. Let's live together happily again." But Pinky wasn't ready to listen to a single word Peter said. She kept repeating the same thing. "I will not come back to you. No matter what happens, I don't want to live with you anymore." Their marriage had barely lasted 3 months, and within that short time, Peter and Pinky had already separated. Whenever Peter tried to reconcile and went to her parents' house to bring her back, Pinky always gave him the same answer. "I don't want to live with you. I won't return." This would often lead to new arguments between them. Pinky was a school teacher, earning her living by teaching children. Peter, on the other hand, worked in a private company. But despite both being settled in their careers, their married life had completely fallen apart in just 3 months. Pinky had gone back to her parents' home, while Peter tried repeatedly to convince her to return, but she refused every time. On one occasion, when Peter went again to her house, pleading for her to come back, Pinky harshly told him, "Even if you die, I will still never return to your house." Peter thought that Pinky was only angry for the time being. Since they had fought so often, he believed her anger would eventually cool down and that, sooner or later, she would come back to him. So he kept waiting, hoping for the day when Pinky's anger would settle and she would return to his life. But what happened was just the opposite. About 2 months after Pinky had left, one day Peter received a letter from the court. When he opened it and read it, he was completely shocked. His world turned upside down. The marriage had barely lasted a short while, and now summons from the court had already arrived. It was a notice of divorce. Pinky had officially filed a case in court seeking separation from Peter. When Peter read that letter, he was deeply heartbroken. All this time, he had believed that once Pinky's anger cooled down, she would return home and they could live together again. But Pinky had something else in mind altogether. She didn't want to come back. She wanted a divorce. Peter had always thought that if Pinky returned, he would never fight with her again. He planned to sit with her, talk calmly, and try to resolve things with love. But now everything had turned upside down. His hopes were shattered. The matter had already reached the court, and Pinky was determined to separate from him. At first, Pinky's family members tried to convince her not to go through with the divorce, but she refused to change her decision. On the other side, Peter's family advised him as well. They told him, "If Pinky comes back, don't ever fight with her again." Peter also promised them, "Yes, if she returns, I will never fight with her again." But because of Pinky's stubbornness, the situation escalated all the way to divorce. By now, even the families had lost hope. They had tried everything they could to save the marriage, but nothing worked, and eventually they too remained silent. If the matter had only been about divorce, perhaps Peter could have somehow managed it. He might have accepted that Pinky had filed for separation and dealt with it, but things went even further. Along with the divorce case, Pinky's brother also filed another application in court, demanding compensation of $2 million. The claim was that since Pinky was married to Peter and had lived with him after the wedding but was now forced to return to her parents' house, she needed financial support to live her life. The argument was simple. How long can Pinky stay at her parents' home? She needs money to move forward with her life. And because of that, the court papers stated that Peter would also have $2 million to Pinky as compensation. Pinky's brother also argued in court that even if Pinky was working as a teacher, her salary alone was not enough to sustain her. He asked, How long can she depend on her parents? How long can she keep living in her father's house? She needs financial security to survive. This brought a new problem into Peter's life. Ever since Pinky had left, their relationship had become so damaged, so broken that constant fights were the only thing left between them. One day, while Peter was at work in his office, he received a phone call. It was from Pinky. Peter answered the call, but instead of a calm conversation, it turned into another heated argument. Pinky began shouting at him over the phone, and Peter, already frustrated, also lost his temper. In anger, he raised his voice at her right there in the office. His loud argument caught the attention of his boss and his colleagues. Hearing the commotion, his boss came over and asked what was going on. Some of the staff explained to him, "It's his wife. She keeps calling and disturbing him. They fight like this all the time." But Peter's boss was unhappy with the situation. He felt that the constant fights were disturbing the company's work environment. Other workers and colleagues were also getting distracted, gossiping about Peter's personal problems instead of focusing on their jobs. So the boss told Peter, "First fix your family issues. Only then should you come back to work." And because of this, Peter eventually lost his job. Now, Peter was left with nothing. He had no work, no income, and his wife was no longer with him. With no other option, he returned to his parents' house, where his mother, father, and brothers lived. But even there, Peter could not find peace. He had neither a job nor the support of his wife. On top of that, the case was already in court. Alongside the divorce, there was also a demand of 2 million rupees in compensation. Peter was unemployed. Where could he possibly arrange such a huge amount of money from? Because of all this, Peter became extremely distressed and mentally burdened. As time passed, no solution came out of the matter. A year went by, then 2, but instead of things settling down, the pressure on Peter only grew worse. He began receiving threats. "If you don't pay the 2 million rupees in compensation, we will file cases against you. We'll accuse you of harassment, of dowry demands, and put all kinds of charges on you. Not just you. We'll even drag your elderly parents and your brothers into it. They too will have to go to court, and they too could end up in jail." This terrified Peter. He had no job, no source of income. How could he possibly arrange such a huge sum of money? On one side, he had no means to pay, and on the other side, he lived in constant fear of the threats coming from Pinky and her brother. What hurt him most was the thought of his aged parents. He kept thinking, if my old parents are sent to jail, how will they survive? Why should they suffer for my situation? Peter was now completely trapped, without money, without support, and under unbearable mental pressure. He no longer knew what to do. After seeing all of this, Peter became extremely disturbed. He couldn't bear the thought of his parents being sent to jail, nor could he imagine his brothers suffering because of him. So he made a decision. He said to himself, "The only way to escape from all this pain is to end my life." It was January 26th when Peter picked up a pen and a piece of paper and wrote a note. At the top, he wrote, "Sorry, Daddy." Below that, he wrote, "Pinky is torturing me, and that is why I am dying. I feel suffocated, and that's why I am leaving this world now." For his brothers, he added, "Brother, after me, please take care of our parents." And then he expressed his final wish. "When I die and you take me to the graveyard for burial, make sure that on the coffin prepared for me this line is written. My death is because of my wife's torture." He had written in his note that, "This is my last wish. Please fulfill it." It was a Sunday. Peter's entire family had gone to church for Sunday prayers. After 12:30, when the family returned home and opened the room's door, they were shocked. Inside, they found Peter's body. He had hanged himself from the ceiling fan. The family was devastated and in disbelief. They quickly took him down, but he was already gone. In their grief, one of them noticed the note Peter had left behind. They read it and immediately informed the police. The police arrived at the scene, sent the body for post-mortem, and examined the note. Along with the handwritten note, Peter had also left a message for his brother. In that message, he repeated the same request. that on his coffin his last wish must be written so that the world would know why he had taken such a step. It was a strange and heartbreaking final wish. The family, already shattered by his death, was now torn apart about what to do with that message. But in the end, they agreed. If this was his last wish, we must fulfill it. That is why the family finally decided that they would honor Peter's last wish and have that line written on his coffin. When they ordered the coffin, they specifically told the maker, "Please make sure this line is written on it." When the coffin was delivered and the family saw it, they were stunned. Everyone was shocked, because never before had they seen such a thing written on a coffin. People had never witnessed a case where a man, before dying, declared the reason for his own death and asked for it to be displayed publicly. When the coffin was taken to the cemetery, it clearly carried the words, "My death is because of my wife's torture." The burial was completed, and afterward the police took possession of the note for investigation. They first sent it to handwriting experts to determine whether the note was genuinely written by Peter or by someone else. The report confirmed that it was indeed Peter's own handwriting. Now, the police saw that it was written very clearly in the note, so this became a case of abetment to suicide. That is, someone provoking or driving him to take his own life. But in reality, there is nothing in this world so big that it cannot be solved. Every problem has a way out. Ending one's own life is never the right solution. Life is precious, it's beautiful, it's invaluable, and we have no right to destroy it with our own hands. But to leave behind one's elderly parents and brothers like this, to make them cry and suffer, is a deeply painful thing. The very family where you were born, where you lived your whole life, leaving them in tears like this is not something good at all. Saying this is easy, but the truth is that many people go through unbearable pain and hardships. To them, it feels like dying is easier. That's why it is often said, life's struggles are tests, and we must endure them. But only the person living through that pain truly knows how much it shatters them, mentally, physically, and emotionally. They feel tortured in every way, mentally broken, physically drained, emotionally damaged. To escape all of this suffering, they sometimes take such a step. But we must remember, every situation has another side. Where there is sorrow, there is also a possibility of finding joy. If we are happy, we should live in that happiness fully. If we are sad, we should try to see how we can still create something positive from it, how we can come out of it. Suicide is never the only option. There are always many other options in life.
So this is my new video. I need your help. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon and like this video. So thanks for watching. Bye bye.